Some people say that the ego is non-existent, therefore there's nothing to remove, nothing to do. Some people say that the ego is something we need to have because without the ego we couldn't exist in a world. Let me just first clarify, because it is essential for understanding what I'm about to say. So the real understanding is that the ego is simply any thought, feeling, or consequent action that is based on the belief that we are separate, individual, and finite. Essentially, the ego is the belief that I am a separate individual consciousness that exists inside the head, inside the mind, inside the body, and I will share, therefore, the limitations of the body and the mind, and I exist in a separate world at a distance from everything around me, and everybody else in that separate world is their own individual consciousness that is separate from my consciousness, and everybody is almost like the individual universal entity that is completely separate from everybody else. If you believe that, which you do if you're watching this video, you're going to suffer. As you've experienced your entire life, your life has been built on suffering. And suffering is the consequence of perceiving the world in the wrong way. Because perceiving the world in the wrong way creates resistance. Resistance is what suffering is. So that's the first definition. That's the definition of the ego. So where people think you need an ego to interact with the world, what they're really saying is you need to identify with a body and a mind, this particular body and the mind, in order to interact with the world. That's true. But if we believe that we are that with which we identify, fundamentally believe that's what we are, that's what creates the ego, you see? The ego is the belief then, because then we act in it, we start behaving like the body and the mind are fundamentally what we are. So we're going to have to protect ourselves. We're going to have to be very self. So this is why we have people who are super shy. Oh, I don't want to do anything. My identity might be disturbed. People might think I'm this. People might think I'm that. I'll just stay quiet. Or, oh, I feel a complete lack of fulfillment. I feel a complete lack of wholeness. I'll try to aggrandize identity on the inside. So I will go out into the world and try to make something of me so that people whole and fulfilled, you see? So then I can feel that way myself. That's why we have arrogant people, so to speak, right? So this is why we do need to identify with things. We need to identify with the body, but if we believe we are fundamentally the body, then we're going to suffer. So I identify with my body. That's why I put on my clothes. That's why I use my bedroom. That's why I don't walk into my neighbor's house. You see? These are necessary things, but I don't believe I'm the body, you see? But I still identify with it. It's a pretty perfectly legitimate thing to do. Just like we're going to identify with our kids, our wives, our family, our friends. You see? It's just we don't fundamentally believe we are those people. So the ego is not to blame for anything. The ego is the consequence of believing that we are temporary, limited, and finite. So people say the ego is the problem, remove the ego. Obviously, you can't really remove the ego because the ego is the problem. The ego is not the problem. It's the consequence of the problem of believing ourselves to be temporary, limited, and finite. So if we don't remove that belief, then we're going to be stuck believing ourselves to be temporary, limited, and finite, and therefore suffering. So neither is true, but both of them are a little bit true, you see? What we have to realize is that our fears will typically get worse the closer we get to uprooting this belief. When I say our fears, typically it'll start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Some people may find the process is surrendering our separate identity. All our lives, we've been building ourselves on a separate identity. We've been therefore seeking for fulfillment in the world based on because we've attached our identity to these things, there's subtle things that we fear losing. Family, friends, relationships, fear that we're going to lose these things when we recognize our true nature and surrender it. Most people recognize their true nature, but they're unwilling to allow that to be their experience. They don't want it to be their lived and felt experience because they think that if they do, they will disappear. They think that fundamentally, I will disappear because there's still a hint that they are temporary, limited, and finite. Because obviously, if you really knew you weren't temporary, limited, and finite, then you wouldn't be having any fear of disappearing because you cannot disappear. So it's kind of like the step that is glass, and it looks like you're stepping off the edge of the cliff, only to find out there's no edge of the cliff. It's all made of glass and you just carry on walking and there's no problem at all. But the fear is that we will fall off the cliff. So it really takes courage, honestly. It takes courage to completely finally surrender the individual identity. Remember, an identity is an identity, right? Gone through a transgender movement. Did they die physically? No, of course not. Did they disappear? No, they went from being who they were to still being who they were. You see what I mean? They've always been that. Likewise, our journey from going limited actual, it's not gonna like a change in experience. Experience is going to be revealed as more truey, right? It was less truey before because there was a lot of ignorance and blind spots. Now it's more truthy, you see? So it's not going to be an experience that is going to frighten us. It's not going to be something that's horrible. It's just a natural occurrence of, oh, right, this being that I am is already what I always was, and nothing has changed, yet everything has changed. When I say nothing has changed, we don't want to allude to the fact that, it's like, there's no way of putting it. I can't explain it in a better way than saying that nothing has changed, yet everything has changed. You'll see what I mean. Some of you maybe already do. Nothing has changed, yet everything has changed. I don't know how else to put it. You see? Nothing perceptually has changed, but it has perceptually changed because I'm no longer limited to feeling like I'm inside the body. I don't feel like I'm in the body, for example. But perceptually, I still perceive distance between my hands. And I still can perceive my hands. I'm not saying I'm fundamentally the body and these are my hands. I'm saying that I identify with the body as an appropriation because I'm an intelligent, infinite being, just like you, just like everyone. We're not going to go dumb. Oh, which ones are my hands? I have no idea. I'm infinite consciousness. Is these my hands? Are those my hands? Is this me? Am I the plant? You see what I mean? It's like, no. We have intelligence as part of the package, guys. We're not just going to blip off into nothingness and lose our identity and be this floating orb of nothing and being, oh my God, and I don't know, to distinguish myself from the radiator. There is no radiator, there's only myself. No, this is all a load of nonsense. We are perfectly intelligent enough to be able to distinguish different experiences and nuanced concepts and also paradoxes. The whole point of this process is to comprehend this paradox. Once we comprehend the paradox, we leave the paradox. And this is what we're experiencing. So let this ease your fears of just surrendering your individual identity because you're a universal being experiencing an individual experience. And guess what? For as long as you'll ever have an experience, you'll always be an individual because you can't have, unless you're a two-headed dragon one day or a three-headed beast, you're not going to be having, you know what I mean, three separate experiences at once. And arguably, the three-headed dragon is still having an individual experience. It just has one body. You see what I mean? Shared between... We're not going into silly concepts like that. But you understand what I'm trying to say. If you're not having an individual experience, you're having a universal experience. And that is zero time, zero space. So you're not going to actually experience it in the way that we currently are. So it'll be like in deep sleep where you just blip and comes out. You see? Individual experience again. So the only experience you'll ever have is of an individual experience. You see, from a point of view, if you're having an experience at all, the only other alternative would be the experience of no experience or the experience of nothing. So rest your fears, surrender to this infinite will. It is your own infinite will. You're not surrendering it, I'm giving it to the universe. God, I got to give it up now. It's still yours. It always has been. You just get deeper and deeper freedom. Like, there's not even a price to pay, for God's sake. You just, I'm going to trade my limited freedom for more freedom. I'm not sure if this is a good deal. You see, it doesn't make sense. So let this video be a testimony to deeper and deeper freedom. Surrender to yourself. You will lose absolutely nothing, and you have everything to gain. I have a free community. The link is in the description. If you'd like to join, I'd love to see you there. Meditations every single week, all for free. Community, lots of amazing people. It's a great vibe. I'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye.